Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning or evening, wherever you are. Just waiting for the music to stop before we can start. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar on digital transformation and women's employment, the case of South Korea. Today's event is jointly organized by the Korean Women's Development Institute, or KWDI, collectively with ADB's Gender Equality Thematic Group, Education Sector Group, and Digital Technology Unit. The topic today is very timely and important. We all know that the economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has had substantial negative implications for gender equality, both in terms of immediate short-term impacts, as well as the subsequent longer-term recovery. Women have suffered disproportionate job and income losses because of their overrepresentation in the hardest hit sectors, concentration in the informal economy, and in micro businesses with limited growth potential. The ILO has projected that as a result of the pandemic, there will be 13 million fewer women in employment compared to pre-pandemic levels. At the same time, the pandemic has accelerated patterns of inequality associated with the evolution of the fourth industrial revolution and the many millions of jobs which may be displaced by technology. Women face many specific challenges which make them particularly vulnerable to these trends, such as limited access to education and skills training, high concentration in sectors and jobs that are affected by technology development and automation, gender wage gaps, and the unequal distribution of unpaid care work. So it's very clear that in the absence of proactive efforts, gender inequality is likely to be exacerbated by the dual impact of technology and the pandemic-caused recession. So I invite you to really actively participate today, ask questions, share your experiences, and maybe even suggest some new approaches for ADB to support in this space. So with that, I give the floor to my colleague, Thomas Abel, the Chief of Digital Technology, to moderate the session. Over to you, Thomas.
Great. Thanks, Sam, and thanks everybody for joining this very interesting event today. So indeed, digital transformation may have negative influence on women's access to resources and opportunities. And there are digital gaps prevalent across the region of Asia and the Pacific. 17% of women, between women and men for across the region in internet access. And for South Asia, it's much worse with 26% gap between women and men for owning a mobile phone and 70% in using mobile internet. So also digital literacy, language and cultural barriers are also coming to bear and have relevant, very clear gender dimensions. At the same time, there are some promising signs as well in the data. A few examples are in the PRC, 55% of new internet businesses are founded by women. In Indonesia, 35% of revenue of the country's largest online marketplace was by women-owned businesses, which is double the percentage in the non-online world. So there is some indication that the digital economy will be more, provide more gender neutral opportunities. Also, a McKinsey report showed that worldwide, 7 to 24% of currently employed women may need to transfer occupations due to the digital revolution. And if women can take advantage of these transitions, they could actually improve their employment situation. Women would also need to maintain or gain higher education and different skills in order to achieve that as well. This whole question of what will best prepare women for the transition is something I think we're hoping to hear more about today. Our speakers will share some of the lessons that they've learned, looking forward to how we can address these challenges and create opportunities for women and girls to benefit from the new sectors and the jobs that'll be emerging from digital transformation. Our first speaker I'll introduce is Dr. Yoonjin Oh. Dr. Oh is Vice President and Senior Research Fellow at the Korean Women's Development Institute. She has worked there since 2004, and she's researched many areas in relating to women's employment and participation in the workforce. Some recent research projects included changes in jobs for women attributed to technological development and counter strategies, a study on women jobs in the time of digital transformation, and women jobs and the future. She also completed her doctoral degree at the University of Missouri, Columbia in the USA, with a focus on industrial education and educational sciences. And Dr. Oh will present the case of South Korea and how digital transformation interlinks with women's employment. So I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Oh. You can take it from here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for introducing me, Thomas Bell. Thank you for inviting this seminar. I introduced for myself very shortly. I studied in the human resources development. That's my major, academic major, but I have researched in KWDI and Korean women's labor market and Korean women's economic activities. So today, I would like to tell you Korea women's labor market is impacting on digital transformation and COVID-19 recently. As far as I know, in Korean case is very difficult. So in Korean, the use of the computer device and mobile by gender does not show big differences. However, in Korean labor market, and gender differences is very big. So today I'm going to tell you how these big differences by gender in Korean labor market is to change it on digital transformation and COVID-19 recently. Okay. That the contents are as follows. For background and challenges, the potential. For background and challenges, the potential impact of digital transformation on industry structures and labor market has been a major topic in academic conferences and seminars over the past 5 years. The WEF predict when 5 women lose jobs at the same time, 3 men lose jobs by 2020. Therefore, women's labor market decreases in a faster rate than men's labor market. This prediction for the previous slide is by Frey and Osborne, experts in England. However, this prediction received many challenges from other experts, mainly because the prediction is very simple. As far as I know, this prediction was created through an internet survey from 100 to 200 experts all around the world. From this, some experts proposed the survey results were overestimated by Frey and Osborne, and jobs simply cannot be replaced by technology. Moreover, they proposed the social policies should be considered. So today, the purpose of this presentation is to review the change observed in gender disparity in South Korea labor market over the past decade. And secondly is to identify the industry significantly affected by digital transformation. And finally is to discuss the implications of our findings on gender equality. Actually, I prepared lots of slides for explaining Korean women's labor market situation, but I have only 15 minutes for this presentation. So I will only focus on gender differences in two different time points, 2000 and 2020. On the left figure, the difference of labor market participation rates by gender narrowed from 2000 to 2020. On the right figure, the employment rate gap of the gender not only decreased, but the rate of women is actually higher than men in 2020. Actually, Korea gender gap narrowed, the gender unemployment rate declined. Finally, women are actively seeking jobs. Still, women find it more difficult to find decent jobs compared to their male counterparts. Another implication is this means Korean active economic population is getting larger portion of labor market than 2000. So the unemployment rate is increasing in women's side. This figure above shows M-shaped curve explaining a Korean labor market unique aspects. Compared to 2025-29 age groups, labor participation rate is higher in 2020. And then the lower points shift from 30 to 34 age group to 35 to 39 age group. This participation rate of the lower point increased too. However, you can still identify M-shaped curve for both 2000 and 2020. For 40 to 44 age group, the labor market participation rate is still the same, even through 20 years have passed. Next slide. The wage gap in Korea labor market is very challenging. Figure 4 above show the monthly wage of each age group. As shown above, the wage gap between gender started widening at 25 to 29 age group and peaked at 50 and 54 age groups. So as you shown this figure 4, and you can find that the wage gender gap is getting larger. The figure, as you shown the figure 5, why the declining in employment was greater among women during the COVID-19 pandemic compared to men, the women's employment recover faster and more broadly when the pandemic started to decay in March 2021. Employment rates started bouncing back mainly around the no-contact service in March 2021. Employment rates continued steadily rise in decent join in construction and transportation industries for men and in social welfare, IT, and professional scientific services in industry for women. Meanwhile, in-person service industry, including wholesale and retail service, lodging and restaurant business, and leisure service remained sluggish. Okay, the portion of female workers decrease in financial and insurance industry, manufacturing, wholesale and retail, lodging and restaurant business, and education service industry. The proportion of female workers increase in IT, professional and scientific service business, health and social welfare service industries. So from 2013 to 2021, despite the overall decline in employment during the pandemic, proportion of women between 25 54 years of age increased in skilled labor sectors in professional, scientific, and technical service industries. From this slide, I would like to explain about the policies and the policy implementation strategy in Korea. In spite of discovering the difficulties of women's labor market participation in 2006, the South Korea government introduced the Act on the Promotion of Economic Activities of Career-Interrupted Women to implement policies to facilitate the economic participation of women in the 25-54 age bracket. Se-il Center has been established. The role of Se-il Center is reinforcing women's re-employment. Now, 158 Se-il branches across the country. The Se-il Center's major activities is the one-stop service, which is offer employment counseling, vocational training, internship opportunities, job information, and job retention supports. Se-il Centers designed to meet the unique needs of women with interrupted career paths and to provide integrated services. One is the vocational training. It customized for women with interrupted career paths. Another one is counseling. Counseling is offered in consideration of situation of individual women who discourage after long-term career disruption and family obligation, etc. Before the pandemic, the center only offered the offline vocational programs. However, during the pandemic, the center started promoting online plus program. This program is designed to provide additional online career services in the era of digital transformation period to COVID-19. Offline and online hybrid this program provide online offline hybrid methods. So this is combining live online lectures and offline practices courses using specially designed online center and platforms. After COVID-19, the courses has been well settled and the percentage of online course among the overall sale training has been increased. 2020 of 17% to change 2021 is 34%, is now 47.6%. In 2020 now, 115 of 158 women's re-employment center is called the Se-il Centers are planning to provide online plus program. And that's the case studies is for using the online program. One is the vocational training programs. The name is the International Freight to Forwarding Specialists Training Program, located in Seocho, in Seoul, Seocho Se-il Center. The online plus program was offered in order to facilitate the efficiency of vocational training that the center provided. Due to COVID-19, online programs were moved to a virtual space via video conferencing platform, online, offline, hybrid methods in a timely manner. In order to balance the limitations of online program, they required a trainee to electronically submit practice assignments for evaluation and adjusting the level of training. And that is to use the chat room. In chat room, many people is to communicate to the center any questions or feedback on the training anytime during online courses, and share the lecture materials and announcements through the chat room. That's an example of a virtual job interview. So offline and online hybrid mini job fairs happen to in sales centers during COVID-19. And sales host mini job fairs on a regular basis in order to link job seekers with employers. During the pandemic, virtual events became a norm, and more centers started to offer mini job fair on the internet. The employment information on the job fair website. The sales center made a reservation and for online interviews between seeking workers and employee and employers. And then another example of the virtual job interview, the work in sales centers, AI or VR-based interview practice and mock interview section. But actually, I don't understand this situation, because I received this case is the contents, but I cannot experience the kind dose of the work, the job interview or the job fair. So I have a limitation to explain this situation. Okay, some conclusions. It is premature to predict the potential impact of digital transformation on jobs for women. But clearly, however, there are emerging jobs and declining jobs. So therefore, it is important to keep the predicting related trends and developing appropriate vocational training programs in order to shorten the length of career disruption for women and assist women with their career transition efforts. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. O, and thanks for making such a comprehensive presentation in the short time. And it is very important for us to understand these trends as we are trying to figure out how to bring these job opportunities to women. And I think your point about that you can't, it's hard to understand what the new jobs are coming from digital is very clear. And it's almost a problem of, we see in the entertainment world too. It's much easier to see things existing, like existing jobs going away, than to imagine what the new jobs are that will replace them, but we know they will be there. And that's why it's important for our job to figure out what they are and to try to position for that. And I think one of the most stark points you raised was the percentage of women who are receiving that training going from 17% to 48%. Hopefully that training also is being measured to see what kind of outcomes it will provide. That example of the freight forwarding program sounds very practical, the kind of thing that would be tangible to create real jobs rather than just kind of generic training to, explain how to use a web browser or something like that, that we know doesn't necessarily lead to a job. So thanks for that. And we will want to make sure, we also want to understand, how different industries are undergoing digital transformation and how that's going to affect jobs. And I think your presentation came across that. Even the AR and the VR was interesting. We know that there's a lot of hype around that, and even the platform we're using now, Zoom, and the other one that we use at work is called Teams. They're starting to move in that direction because everybody wants to make sure they don't miss out on that if it becomes a really big deal. But I'm not looking forward to wearing that thing on my head in these kinds of events. ADB has incorporated innovative strategies in our programs and in our policies. We have a good proportion of our ADB programs now are enabled by digital technologies, and we invest directly in digital technologies. But we also have to take a reform-oriented mindset to make sure that that the technologies are done in a way that's inclusive and promotes development. And we need to think about things like what are the skills that are needed, what institutional structures are required, business models that need to be supported, and policy and regulatory environments. These can all also, digital can support improved delivery of public services, as you've shown in your presentation, moving to the pandemic and having these centers and job trainings going virtual. To ensure that these efforts are inclusive and benefit women and girls and others, ADB is working very closely across our sector and thematic groups, including our education and our gender teams who are co-hosting this environment. So with that, I will transition to our next speaker, who is Brajesh Panth, who will be our discussant. And Brajesh is the chief of the education sector group, and he'll basically provide some background on ADB's current and forthcoming work with our DMC clients in this area to strengthen education systems and address challenges to adults with the rapidly changing labor markets. So with that, I'll hand it to you, Brajesh. Take it from here. Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas, and thanks to Dr. O for an excellent presentation, which resonates so well in the current context. The future of jobs is at the heart of development in Asia and the Pacific, and preparing workers with the right skills and capabilities for the future central to the Asian Development Bank portfolio on skills development. In recent years, disruptive technologies and digital transformation have unsettled labor markets, as we are discussing, intensifying worries of extensive job losses as a result of automation and of economies in the region losing their competitive advantage, where low labor costs and low skills have prevailed. Over the coming years, many jobs will disappear, while many more new ones are being created due to growing use of robots and artificial intelligence. A big concern is that the digital transformation is disproportionately affecting women who participate in repetitive tasks that can be easily replaced by technology. The ADB study, Reaping the Benefits of Industry 4.0 through skills development in high growth industries in Southeast Asia, shows that women are more at risk than men of job loss from automation in the agro-processing, electronics, tourism, and garments industry. The digital transformation is also an opportunity to find new and decent jobs that are likely to grow and much less susceptible to future shocks. With the acceleration of internet-based economy and gig economy, new jobs are being created, leading to wider use of platforms to seek jobs. Therefore, digital technology and skills cannot be overemphasized for women to adapt to these rapid shifts in the labor markets and optimize the emerging opportunities unleashed by digital transformation. Women's participation in economic activity is critical, not only for the nation's economic development, but also for social development. ADB has made various efforts to this end, especially education and skills development at all levels of education is critical to increase women's participation and share in formal labor markets. To this end, I hope we can collaborate more with the international community to support our developing member countries to achieve universal secondary education. This is essential to reduce different forms of divides: rural, urban, gender, digital, formal, informal labor markets, and so on. Many countries, including developing countries, have an imbalance in the proportion of women in education and research programs in STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It is necessary to expand the opportunities in STEM education, including digital technology, across all levels of education. While high quality primary and secondary education is crucial to provide a solid foundation to all girls, it is also important to support women in post-secondary education and those that are often constrained by different imperatives such as childcare, leading to fallout of the labor market with little opportunity for successful re-entry. Developing a robust lifelong learning system is an opportunity to provide targeted services to women. So therefore, it will be of common interest to support and promote a common platform that provides women, that provides employment services and skills development opportunities to women who have been away from economic activities and training for a long time. ADB has supported several projects focusing on narrowing gender gaps, adapting for digital transformation, including entrepreneurship, digital literacy, digital healthcare, and teacher training, reskilling programs in priority industries, and so on. The proposed programmatic approach and policy-based loan for subprogram 1, in the Republic of Indonesia, promoting innovative financial inclusion program, was categorized as GEN, which is the highest gender category. It includes several important policy measures to proactively strengthen and promote women's economic resilience and empowerment with use of access to digital technology. Another example is the Tonga introducing e-government to digital health. As Dr. O has mentioned in our presentation, the health sector is quickly adapting to the activities to pursue sustainable and inclusive development and co-prosperity in Asia and the Pacific. Thank you. Back to you, Thomas.
Great. Thanks, Brajesh. And it's good to see the programs, the wide range of programs that we're investing in this area. And I think the pandemic has shown that these programs are critical, and that digitizing them is also critical. So we have some questions from the audience, and a couple questions. I think maybe we can go through the audience questions first, and then also if anyone from the audience has more, please type them in. The first question is a question basically about the types of employment, the various types of jobs between men and women, and this is basically for Dr. O. Do you have more information about the difference in the job types that men and women? I think you had mentioned that women were going into more of the technical areas, but maybe just if you can mention a little bit about that. The statistic that I mentioned in Indonesia about, or PRC, where digital jobs relating to e-commerce were good areas for women. But I think in Korea, it's more, you mentioned more technical areas where, and maybe that's a reflection of the fact that Korea is a more technologically advanced country to start with. But go ahead, Dr. O, if you have an answer to that or any inputs.
Okay, thank you for the questions. And actually, I have enough materials to explain the different types of jobs in the proportion of men and women's, the proportion. And then go back to my slide 11, and then I prepared then the proportion of female workers by industry. So at the time, we can compare the 2 points in 2013 to 2013 and 2021, and is the health and social service area and the women's workers is very increased in 2013 is 12 points, now is 70.7%. And then is the professional and scientific area is the 2.82. In 2013, the proportion of female workers are 2.8 is to increase to 3.8. And then is IT area is in 2013, the portion of female workers is 1.7. Now is the 2021 is the getting increased to 2.4. So is the IT and the professional and scientific area and the health and social service area is the women, the proportion of female workers are getting increased. But I can't have I know, but I can remember that what percentage is the balance between the differences. I can tell you now, but in social service area is the most of women is occupied in the sectors, but IT, as far as I know, in 20% of the workers is women in that area, and professional and scientific areas is the more than 10% is women's is the occupied in that area. So actually in Korea we have a very highly educated women, but in labor market the most of highly educated women are not active economic population. The many highly educated women do not work, and they have a child care at home. So in senior centers is promote to counseling to promote the re-employment is for the very highly educated woman, and the long-term the retirement woman is getting re-enter that labor markets. So, but at that time is the labor market, the occupied men, female and male is the occupied, the rates is a little bit changed, but not different.
Great.
So,
Maybe we can go to the next question is about the training. And I also wondered about this of how do you decide which trainings to make available, and then how are they paid for? Because we've seen some countries that are offering these kinds of trainings for free. And do you measure the outcomes of, are these actually leading to new employment opportunities?
Actually, in Korea, last year, 2 years ago, we are established the one law that's the all around the people in Korea getting receive the free training from our government. So in for 3 years, the governments prepare for 한 300만 원 얼마니? $3,000 to get like a voucher. Do you know the voucher? Yeah. So a training voucher in all people in Korea regarding the income level. So we can get the free training program. Do you understand what I mean?
Per person, that's great.
Yes. The regarding the income level. In 3 years ago, we are established the kinds of law. So Korean government prepared now preparing this voucher like a credit card. So in credit card, kind of they put the money, and we can get the training program.
That's great. I know. I wanted to ask. I know Brajesh. You know, there's I think a similar program in Singapore called Skills Future that was, I think, more like $500. But have you seen, Brajesh, other countries or DMCs using this approach for career education, where they use the vouchers and let them go to the private market?
Well, there are different countries, like even Malaysia has a very good skills fund. And I recall many countries are using different mechanisms to finance training programs. What we do mostly is we work with Ministry of Education or Labor, but also with Ministry of Finance. For example, in Bangladesh, Ministry of Finance is doing it because they can, link with private sector, because the private sector becomes very important to use in-company training, and there is also better likelihood that hands-on training will lead to better training. We also have stipends. We provide stipends through the projects and target disadvantaged groups. But based on our experience, the best is to work with the private sector and also explore vouchers more, like what Dr. O is saying, and along the line of Singapore's Skills Future, because that is the future in terms of reskilling and upskilling and preparing the existing workforce better to look into what the kind of challenges they are facing right now due to digital transformation. Back to you.
Great. Thanks, Dr. O. On that question with the voucher, $3,000 is quite a large amount, and it's great to. Do you have any numbers on how many citizens are taking advantage of it, and what the gender gap there is when it's offered for free? I'm sure not everyone is utilizing it, but it would be interesting to see what the level of uptake is for that.
Actually, is as far as I know, is that's kind of the voucher is the more female gets the more percentage of the receiver. So as far as I know, is almost over 60% receiver is for women. So, but we have different levels of training programs. But a little bit lower program is occupied by women. But very technically highest program is occupied men. That's a problem, though, because the digital transformation is expected a highly skilled job or highly skilled the abilities. But so government prepared the $3,000 for 3 years for upskilling and reskilling. But however, most of women's is in the low level of the training program is getting the low level is training program such as cooking or sewing something. But is the men most of men is the signing up that is the IT programs and something. So we understand that that's a problem. So we need to control that. It's balancing is the training levels for women and men.
Great, thanks. So we have another question looking for more perspective on women in Korea. So how many are small and medium enterprises led by women? How freely available is social media and other digital platforms? Can women in SME world improve their business activities using digital? If you have any perspective on that, that would be great.
Well, it's very quite difficult questions, but in many of small science enterprise, the requires that the government platform, and that to that government platform, they would like to expect that support that is a training program for enterprise, and then is the some financing for small size enterprise, the farms. But I don't know that kind of case of that small size the women's enterprise have that kinds of the they are helped by on government platform. I don't know about that.
Okay, no, that's fine. So we have some other questions. One very basic question is, what do you think the lessons that ADB can learn from the experience in Korea as we create programs for our developing member countries? You know, Korea is one of the most digitally advanced countries in the world, but some of the trends that you're seeing are trends that will be relevant for our other developing member countries. And you know, like this idea of this voucher program is a very good one. But do you see any other lessons that we can take away for our work in other countries?
Actually, the developing country, if a Korean the government policy, the lesson is to establish the women's training centers. We call that sales center. That's that the centers provide that the child caring and then educational training and lending the digital devices. So that centers provide then many some very important materials for training, the women's training. So that, I think that is a good lesson. As far as I know, in Korean government and planned that those kind of the centers in another beside Saigon. 사이공이 아니라 뭐니? 사이공 맞나? So as far as I know, in Vietnam, in Korean government, the plant that those kind of centers in like ODA, one of ODA. So that those centers is providing the child caring systems and educational device and training programs. So I think that is a good lesson.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's great, because instead of just offering a generic training program for all adults, which would obviously not be designed specifically for women, especially women with interrupted careers, I think focusing on that M-shaped curve where you see the interrupted careers happening is a very clear area where the programs can be tailored to meet those needs more effectively. And I think that is a lesson that can be learned to make these programs tailored to the specific gender needs and you know, the data that you see on where the people are dropping out of the workforce. And I guess I can. Oh, go ahead, Brett.
Can I add? Yeah. So Thomas, I think Korea has some other, you know, good experiences. One I can think of is there is a university called Korea Polytechnic University, which is actually designed to support medium enterprises. And I wonder how much of that arrangement is targeting women, because that is a very practical way of looking at it. The MSMEs don't have enough resources to do research and look into labor market and develop their own strategies. So that can help a lot. The other thing I'm also interested to understand is the STEM part, because Korea's education is robust. They have been increasing investment in that. And how is that impacting, labor market participation? And finally, I think the sort of systems thinking we're talking about, and STEM education is a good example. But she also mentioned about, Dr. O mentioned about having higher education doesn't mean it leads to higher participation. And we have a case in point in Sri Lanka, is in a similar kind of situation. Women are more educated, but not necessarily participating. So if Dr. O could also, highlight some of that.
That's great. And this raises another question for both of you, maybe, which is, what are the implications of the pandemic and the work from home model that is not going to be, it's not everybody's going to be working from home, but I think the pandemic has shown remote work that it's been expanded. So it should open up more opportunities for women who maybe, have a different career model, like, still taking care of kids and being able to work remotely. And I don't know if either of you have seen any new programs to take advantage of that opportunity, or maybe that's part of this SAIL program includes that. I'm not sure.
답을 해야 되는 거야?
While Dr. O is thinking about it, my quick reaction is, last year, Samantha, if you recall, the keynote speaker on the International Women's Day was talking about, for instance, one good lesson from working from home is that that can be a new norm and not necessarily, have people travel to work. And we have also seen that within ADB, because commuting time is a lot. And for people with small kids, I think that will continue to become very important and will provide different ways of combining, support and also doing better in terms of work-life balance. So I think we need to have a deeper understanding about that. But other thing I can think of is obviously the abrupt and sudden shift has created a lot of opportunities, but also revealed, stark differences. And that's where I think we need to continue to build. And better, Thomas, about that. Back to you.
And in Korea, during the pandemic, still now, we are the many companies let them working from home. So in many female workers is can the care of for their kids and then work and same time work at home. But in pretty my opinion, I don't like the work and life balancing. I don't like those kind of types of the work. Is not good for women to keeping on career, because it's the two burdens, is the work and carrying the kids at home same time. So in Korea, the time share for at home, in men and women's, in the mother and fathers, in the time sharing is not equal. So if women work at home, but they're gonna have two burdens: is the work and the child caring. So I don't like those kind of the work types, but at this month on May in Korea, so we let them in free. That is the pandemic strategy, government strategy. So in our company is that we return and recover that is the previous systems, but we need to compare the two systems in working from home and working at the office. We need to compare and analyze those experience. That we provide that the new working types of the scheduling or something.
Sure, yeah, I agree. Because also the home environment needs to be conducive to working, so that women who are working from home may need more space. And I think that what Brajesh mentioned also is very critical, that commuting time is a dead weight loss, and especially in a place like Manila, where it takes an hour, to commute to work and an hour back, so the 2 hours in the day that are lost in commuting, and that will benefit anybody who can leave that, get that time back, even if it's just a few days a week. And I think during the pandemic, when children were also schooling from home, that made it much more challenging. But if the children are able to go to school or there's daycare, then working from home can be more of a less of a burden. But I think these questions are interesting because, even the VR and AR you showed in your picture, we know that there are some, companies pushing this as a way of making working from home more interactive, because it feels more like you're there and with people rather than just looking at them on a screen. But I think some of these technologies are not yet proven out.
By the way, Thomas, just one qualification. When I said working from home, I'm talking about mothers and fathers. So I'm not just implying a particular group.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the point, if these educational programs and job programs can be tailored to any demographic, that makes it match the needs, and then they can work well rather than a one size fits all. So we are just near the end. I just want to see if there's any other questions from the questions. We answered all the ones in the box. If there's any other questions, raise your hand, or if any of the speakers have any last thoughts on the discussion. I do think this is an area that we have to look optimistically, because there are all these new jobs. The fact that we don't know what they are yet is the problem. We can always look at the old jobs and say they're going to go away, but it's hard to say what's going to replace them. So we need to be really optimistic about making these jobs happen and giving the people the skills and doing it in in an inclusive way. So I'll hand it back. Well, I don't know if yeah, I guess this is it. I'll just say then, any last words from anybody, and if not, we can call it a night or night for me. And thank everybody for joining, and please reach out if you have any follow-up questions. Thank the speakers and thank the attendees for participating today.
끝났어?